and I'll go through the slides. We're letting Andrew off the hook because he's been on leave, but he will chip in, I'm sure, hopefully. Okay, Rachel.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Rachel Garnham. I'm a senior manager in Office of Pro-Vice-Chancellor Students. I work in Julie's team and I work on lots of the activities that we do in partnership with the Students Association. So lots of you know me already, and I'm looking forward to meeting some of those who I haven't met yet and working with you on things like student charter, student consultation, and student voice broadly, and I will try not to go on too much about that when it comes to my turn so that we can do questions. Thanks.
Yeah, and we're conscious that some of you have been engaged with the Students Association and some are very new. So we'll try and pitch it at the very new. So apologies to those that already know stuff that we talk about. But as I say, we'll try and keep it quite high level, not too much detail for you this evening, because you could always come back and follow up with questions afterwards to any one of the team. So without further ado, I will share my screen. Hang on to remember how to do that. So can everybody see that? Is it in, should I put it in presentation mode? Okay, so is that coming through?
It's coming through on presenter view.
Brilliant. Okay, so I can't see you now, so I'm going to be reliant on Rachel and Andrew to check the chat box. If we slip into acronym language heaven, which we do quite easily, we'll try not to, but we'll support each other as we're all talking and explain acronyms hopefully as we go. As I say, we'll whip through these slides and then we'll have conversation and questions at the end. Okay, so we're here to just give you a brief introduction to the Office of the Pro-Vice-Chancellor Students. His name is Professor Ian Pickup. He's relatively new to the OU. He's been with the OU a year, just over a year, but lots of experience in the sector, and it's great that we've got Ian on board. So the purpose of this session is to give you an overview of the remit of PVC students. We want to introduce the main areas of work that are connected to student voice. So Rachel's going to pick up on a bit more detail in that space. And then, as I say, we're going to allow a bit of time for questions and comments. Oh, you can tell I've nicked someone's slides, can't you? Because that wasn't supposed to happen. Right. Okay. So what's our purpose? So our purpose, there's about 60 of us, 60 staff, around that number. And we are a strategic unit rather than an operational delivery unit, although we do look after some curriculum, namely the access modules and the open programme. But what that means is being a strategic unit is we set the direction and we engage and influence and collaborate with our colleagues across the whole OU in order to deliver our work. So our purpose is really summarised in that little circle. It's about improving student outcomes, improving the student experience, and reducing inequality. We're kind of changing the terminology a bit of late. So we're starting to talk about achieve equity, a bit more of a positive slant. So our vision is to work with you, to work with our students. So, you know, the most powerful evidence driver for what we need to do differently is you and your voice and how you connect to the student, your student body. Sorry, excuse me. So it's all about improving outcomes. And what do we mean by that? We mean your kind of module completion, qualification completion, and your progression. So how can we support you to achieve your goals and motivations, or go beyond your original goals and motivations, as we often see many students do? How can we improve your experience? So, you know, while you're with us, you're having the best experience you can. And how can we achieve equity? That's us in a nutshell. So all really positive. Sorry, excuse me. End of the day. this slide just gives you a few of the main pointers from our business plan. So as I say, in terms of outcomes, it's really about how we can get, get more students coming to us and achieving against their original goals and motivations, but being really mindful and driven by the access and participation lens on all of that work. So in achieving equity, it's really about understanding that not everybody is coming from the same background, the same experience. And so how can we nuance what we do in terms of our support of our students so that we can really deliver more equity in that space, so that we're supporting students that may have additional barriers to achieving success, and what can we do in addition to support those students. There's a big focus on student outcomes in terms of first study experience, particularly across level 1 and first modules in postgraduate. And this is because that's where we see the biggest attrition. We see, across our new students in level 1, we see about between 30 and 40% attrition. So why is that? Are students signing up for the wrong module, qualification? Are we giving the right information to students? So that whole readiness piece. But also, what is it about our kind of early engagement of students? They obviously have signed up, start off really motivated, but then all of a sudden everything lands, and the realism of what it means to be an OU student and what you've got to do kind of hits. So how can we make that transition into OU study easier for students and more onboarding? Another big area of focus under the outcomes agenda is the tuition and assessment. So once the readiness piece is really about how students start, making sure they start at the right place. Then it's kind of everything else, and that's kind of encapsulated in the tuition and assessment programs. And how can we improve continuation and completion and achieve equity within thinking about enhancements to our tuition and assessment practices? Improving experience, well, obviously there's a massive interrelationship here with outcomes, improving outcomes. They kind of go hand in hand. But for the purposes around setting priorities, we have split outcomes and experience out. We've got a couple of slides that you've seen in the pack around how we've done that. But just to be mindful that, of course, experience and outcome, they absolutely are so interrelated. And then the last one there is a staff-facing one. And that's about empowering our colleagues, making sure our staff are equipped to deliver and do their jobs in the best of their capability. So just a little bit to unpack the student experience. So apologies before I get to that. These honeycombs just really set out the main areas of work within Pro-Vice-Chancellor students. So you'll see that student engagement and voice one in the middle there. That's the kind of main one where a lot of our work sits in terms of how we work with our student reps and with the Students Association. And we will unpack that one a little bit more. But suffice to say, across all of these honeycombs, we are driven by student voice. We have to be driven by student voice because everything we do has to be driven by that. To achieve what we need to achieve. But we'll just unpack that middle honeycomb just briefly before I hand over to Rachel. So the student experience honeycomb, we have a student experience committee. Now that's a formal committee. So any policy change, any big significant change in this would go through that formal committee. But the main group, if you will, is really the Student Engagement and Satisfaction Steering Group. Now that is co-chaired by Natalie, your president, and also Ian, the Pro-Vice-Chancellor students. Rachel looks after that group. I sit on that group, and it covers a multitude of things around how we improve student satisfaction and how we engage with our students elicit student voice, think about the diversity of student voice and how that voice is, driving quality enhancement. Some of the things that sit underneath that you may or may not recognise. Rachel's already mentioned the charter, and we'll say something a bit more about that in a moment. We've got the survey work. So the NSS is the National Student Survey. You may be well aware of that. That's the biggest kind of external survey that elicits student feedback, which is sector wide. Student voice and engagement consultation, I'll let Rachel cover that. There's a big focus on community and sense of belonging. How do you feel? How can we improve your communities and your sense of belonging to the university, to the faculty, to your fellow students, to your qualification, to your module? So all different levels in that space. Student Hub Live is an online platform that is an opportunity to deliver some of that community. It's like a platform, a mechanism for you to connect with other students, and you may or may not be aware of that, but I would encourage you to have a look at that if you haven't gone to a Student Hub Live session. There's many sessions over the year that you can go into. And then on the other side of the coin, so to speak, there's all the stuff around progression and student employability. And that's the stuff that Andrew looks after. And we have an academic lead in that space. So really thinking about how you, what we know about what you want in terms of your goals and motivations, in terms of your employability, and how we can support you to achieve those. So just to finally, for me, just to cover off outcomes, this is a governance slide that, very similar to the experience slide, covers the outcomes side of things. So we have an equitable outcomes board. We have a 4 UK nations approach to thinking about how we deliver and achieve equity. So you'll see there that in England, we have the access and participation plan. This is part of our compliance. And we have commitments in the other 3 nations as well. We could have a whole different conversation about all of this work. So I won't go into detail now, but it might be that we want to arrange another session later on down the road that covers all of this work. And then the continuation and completion steering group really drives the agenda around improving continuation and completion. And by that, I mean, you complete the modules you signed up to do, and you complete the qualifications you sign up to do. And then the progression steering group, which is the employability side that we've just talked about. So that's the kind of general overview of the remit of Pro-Vice-Chancellor Students Office. We have an intranet site that gives an organisation chart so you can see the who's who. But strictly speaking, the 3 people that you've got here are probably your first port of call. So as Rachel said, my remit as Assistant Director covers the whole sort of experience and voice angle, but Rachel is the main contact person in that space. And then Andrew looks after the relationship agreement and the relationship with the Students Association and the money, the pennies, if you will. So I think you've got the sort of 3 relevant people here with you today as first points of contact. So with that, I will hand over to Rachel, who's going to give you a little bit more detail about the voice and the experience side. Is that all right, Rachel? Over to you.
Yeah, I don't think I can take control, so if you're all right to move the slides, that would be great. I am going to rattle through this because I do want to leave time for questions. So, do put any questions in the chat or get in touch afterwards. I'll put my email address in there as well. So this is my very small team, so we do our best, but do bear with us if we don't do everything we'd like to do in terms of improving how we listen to students. But we, as Julie said, we look after the student engagement satisfaction steering group, which has oversight of all these areas, co-chaired by Ian and Natalie. We look after the student consultation meetings and online forums, which you've hopefully all seen, at least, if not been a part of. We look after the Student Voice website, which is where we sort of try and close the feedback loop on student feedback, advertise opportunities, and generally sort of promote the value of getting involved with student voice activities. We have a Student Voice hub, where we've sort of co-created a toolkit with your predecessors in this role to support staff in how best to engage with students. So that's sort of particularly around making sure that people can process student expenses, making sure papers are circulated on time for groups, that sort of thing, because staff don't always recognise or need support to recognise that students are very busy, and we need to, bend over backwards as far as possible to make sure that you can be engaged in our work. We've this year organised the Student Voice Festival. We're always trying new and different ways of trying to reach more students, as I know you are in the Students Association, because we always want to reach more diverse students, more diverse students, to just get different people involved in different ways to provide opportunities for different sorts of participation according to what you're able to do and what you're able to give and what you want out of it yourselves as well. We look after the Student Charter, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. We look after the Partnership Agreement, which I've already spoken to some of you about, and then various action plans and National Student Survey. So I think my next slide is the Student Charter. Hopefully you're all very familiar with it already. If you're not, do give it a read, because it was co-created between the University and the Students Association originally back in 2013, but sort of refreshed a few years ago, and we're going to do another big refresh in the coming year. And it is supposed to be a framework for how our community works. That's all of us, staff and students, and we want that to be relevant and meaningful and something that we can all be held to account for. I'll move on to the Student Voice Framework and the Student Satisfaction Framework. These are much bigger documents. I've tried to pick out the sort of key commitments that we make. Again, these have been co-created in the past, so I really want to make sure your student leadership team gets involved in making sure these are sort of up to date and relevant. So our commitment to the student engagement is in the Student Charter. It's got to be authentic, and we must close the feedback loop. We take a partnership approach. It's not just about students as passive consumers of education. It's about how we all work together to make the university a better place. And then our student satisfaction framework is very much about understanding the sort of mass volume of student feedback that we get through so many different channels, informal, via tutors, in our panels, in our surveys, through yourselves, as reps on committees, really understanding where we're doing well and where we need to make improvements, taking action as a result, and evaluating what we've done. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of some of the aspects of the Student Voice Framework, which again I can share with you, but I think these are the key things. Right, we don't just want to survey students and then go away and decide what we do as a result. We want to include students in every stage of our decision making, from what do we want to talk about to students about in the first place, right back to how do we respond, how do we communicate back to students what difference they're making, and different numbers of students are involved at different stages. And likewise, we recognise that for some students, even just sort of hitting this page was useful button is about where they're at in terms of giving us feedback. We value that feedback, but we'd like more. So at every point we're trying to get students to take the next step. If you're already completing a survey, why not get involved in a consultation, and write up, and then if you're doing that, stand for the student leadership team. You've reached the that bit, but we want to help students progress through the ladder, and there are so many different opportunities, which I think is what the next slide is about. Some of you will be involved in lots of these. Some of you might not even know there are students involved in some of these different areas. So you've got the slides, have a look, and if there's something missing, let's create it. If there's not, if something's not working, let's stop doing it. We haven't got our student voice activities right, I'm not sure we'll ever get it quite right. We just need to keep working at different ways that we can engage with students, and make sure, you know, it's not just about getting more, it's about making more impact, and then communicating that impact as well. So the next slide, I think, is about student consultation. Again, hopefully people will have been involved already. We run this in our team. Again, it's a partnership activity. It's not just something we as a university do to you as students. We want to work with the Students' Association in particular to say, what do we need to be talking to students about? What is the best way of asking those questions, of getting that input? It has to be at the right time. It has to be meaningful. It's not, you know, sometimes in the past we've had problems with, like, people will present us with a policy, which, you know, can you send that out to students, see what they think? It's like, why didn't you ask them 6 months ago and see, you know, what students wanted from that policy? So, you know, that's a constant challenge, and that's why the Students' Association involvement is student consultation is so important. And then finally, you'll be pleased to hear, I've been talking to Natalie and Andrew already about, you know, what are our priorities for 24-25. Lots of you will have been involved. Obviously, Nicola and Sharon did an absolutely amazing job being involved in our Student Voice Festival last year. You know, what are our priorities? Because we can't do everything. There's where can we make the biggest difference? We're sort of talking about having another Have You Say Day in November. What would be good content for Have Your Say Day? Survey responses, that's a big area. You know, it's not good enough to only hear from 10% of students in a survey. What can we do to encourage more students to participate? There you go, some questions for you, and I'll finish there. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all. That's really disconcerting when you can't see anyone. So I hope that was helpful. Andrew, was there, just before we open for questions or comments,
can I just say, Rachel, that the postgrad programme this year, we're still looking at information that's over a year out of date. It's something I am going to take up, but my dissertation is due tomorrow, so my whole life's reflected around that. But on the postgrad in education studies, we're still looking at sorry, my brain's not working. Module that stopped a year ago, but when you go onto the ED's postgrad site, it's showing it. Now I will take it up with the head of teaching and learning, but it's not good for a postgrad student. Last year, I know there was a complaint made by over 30 students about the support we received, and it was said it was put right this year. And a lot of students this year on the postgrad third year, the dissertation module, have not received the support that the assessment guidance details they will receive.
Can I just, that's really interesting and really interesting, and we'll pick that up offline with you. Just to say that postgraduate is a big focal point for us in the institution, particularly around experience and outcomes. And I think that was on the slides under the outcomes agenda. But
sorry, I've had my camera off, Julie. I'm trying
to
finish my dissertation and attend this, so I'm sorry for being rude.
No, it's not being rude. You're just giving us your feedback. No, it's not being rude at all. It's good to hear from you. But let's pick that up, because I think there's a whole heap of conversation around postgraduate, and we definitely need to talk to you a bit more about postgraduate. So thank you for raising that, and we will come back to you in that regard.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Andrew, was there anything you wanted to add, or should we open it up for questions and comments?
No, thanks for doing that. Yeah, and apologies, I didn't speak in that, but as Julie mentioned, I only got back from holiday this morning, so thanks to Rachel. No, I put a comment in just to say, just for folk to note that our definition of student success is much broader than our regulator's definition of success. So we tend to very much look at student success from the perspective of students achieving whatever it is they wanted to achieve by studying with us, which could could be a degree, could be a qualification, but might be less than that. Might be a single module, or in some cases it might just be studying to build confidence or studying out of personal interest and stuff like that, whereas our regulator metrics are much more based around the proportion of students who are gaining qualifications and or the proportion of students who are in post graduating or in what they define as what's I can't remember what the latest definition is, graduate level jobs, whatever that means. So there is that tension, but we just want to make it clear, we do stick with that broader definition as well.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Andrew. And we do have some data gaps actually in capturing student goals and motivations. That's a big one for us in PVC Students, so we'll be looking to fill that. I know we're probably at time, but we're happy to organise something else. But is there any other comments or questions from you at this point, or would we can do a follow-up session if you would like a bit more discussion? Have we just given you too much information?
I think it's all been really, really useful, Julie. Thank you to all of you. And yeah, I think maybe once we've sort of sorted our priorities and we're sort of getting into the grips of the leadership and what we want to do, then I think it might be good to arrange maybe another session, just something we can go through, sort of
that would be
projects
brilliant.
And things as well.
Yeah, because you've got your meeting, haven't you, on the 14th
of
this month, where you're going to be talking about your priorities as a new leadership team. So be brilliant to connect with all of you post that meeting, and then we can look at alignment to what we can all achieve together. So yeah, it's a good shout. Okay. I can't see any other hands, so perhaps everybody's ready for the dinner. But yeah, it's great to meet you all, and thank you so much for everything you're going to do over the next couple of years. And you know who we are now. So me, Rachel and Andrew, use us as your first point of call for anything PVC students related, and we'll try and help as much as possible. But let's have a follow-up session once you've had a chance to kind of think through your priorities, and then we'll have a more of a two-way conversation.